Welcome back. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about when you go through traumatic loss or pain. Don't wait. Don't wait like I did. This just a couple days will be 15 years since my twin was killed, and it took me about 12 years to actually start looking for answers and looking for healing. I spent the better part of over a decade just hoping somebody would knock on my door with the answers, or that I would be reunited with my twin. I didn't really have a lot of hope for being happy again, and even as I'm just getting ready to film this, I've broken down a few times just going through some stuff of his and reading words that he wrote and about him. And I know that that's one of the biggest things that stopped me, and I don't want to say stopped me, but that I stopped myself with. Was just the emotion and just the raw feeling of defeat and feeling of hopelessness that really, when I get in tune with my pain, yes, I say my heart beats really fast, and I just, I'm taken back to that moment sitting on the bench when I realized my twin had been killed before I had been told. But yeah, so I just want to encourage people who lose loved ones to not wait as long as I did. I say I waited a little more than a decade before I started really trying to heal my heart. And so, that's fortunately, that's extremely long time. So hopefully most people don't wait that long, because that's one thing I can testify amongst many other challenges of just trying to heal, is that the longer you wait, the longer I would say you put off healing, the harder it is. I just think of, the years immediately following my twin's death, and they were, the pain itself is just as difficult today as it was then. But the difference is that, the moments in between my pain, when I was distracting myself when I was hanging out with my friends and those just doing positive things with my family and such, they were a lot easier for me to be distracted. I think about initially when I came home after I knew my twin had been killed, and my twin brother, Marine recruiter, confirmed it as I was walking to my parents' house. The first thing I did was I didn't say I ran away, but I walked through the door, and I say most of my sisters were there in tears, and my mom was there, and there was a pastor, and like I said, my Marine recruiter was there. And my first, I didn't make eye contact with any of my family. I think I hugged a few of them, and then I went upstairs to my room that I had shared with my twin. And when I walked into our room, I saw, I think, about 20 pictures of my twin I had sitting in my room, just because he was that close to me. I was that fond of him to where I just loved feeling like he was with me at all times, and it was very difficult to walk in that room and have so many images looking at me in the face of what I had lost. And so I don't think I was at my house for very long. I think, I don't know, probably within 20 minutes. I really couldn't tell you. I had no real sense of time, but I immediately said I needed to go. I needed to get back to my girlfriend and her friends, just because I didn't want to be in that house. I didn't want to be in the house that I shared so many good memories with my twin. And so I said goodbye to my family, and my Marine recruiter, actually, I think he drove me to the restaurant where my girlfriend and her friends were, and that's when I informed them what had happened. But as I said, even just the moment that I realized my twin had been killed, my eyes, filled with tears and such. And then my girlfriend pulled up. The instant I realized that somebody could see me vulnerable, somebody could see me with my guard down after my twin had been killed, I immediately blocked it out. I immediately wiped the tears away and started to start my hiding my pain. And so that's what I did for over a decade, was I hid my pain from everyone around me. And it's not that it never came out, but I didn't talk to friends about my pain that I had known my whole life. I didn't talk to friends I had known for so many years and so many good friendships that I don't say inadvertently lost, and I don't think they're lost forever, but yeah, I've pushed a lot of people away because of my pain, and it just made it harder. And that's why I would encourage people not to wait as long as I did, because it just, the longer and longer it went on, the harder and harder it got to talk about it. The more and more natural, sadly, it felt not talking about it, shutting down. Just, I don't know, at times I've broken down in tears because my pain crept up on me, and my automatic instinct is to wipe them away, take a few breaths, and then act like nothing happened. And I've been doing that for almost 15 years. And so it's really hard to get to a point where your body doesn't just defeat itself out of instinct. And so I really encourage people not to wait as long as I did. And again, there's no timetable. I would not push any sense of urgency as far as that if it's been a year or 2 years or 3 years. I don't, again, it comes back to that leading a horse to water and not being able to make it drink. It is something that the individual has to make that decision. But it's something that I would always encourage and just say that, the feelings that you have, the feelings of defeat, the feelings of loneliness, even when you are surrounded by so many loved ones, I understand those. I completely understand. I've got 4 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, and the Lord has blessed me. I have a very large family. I have lots of aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents that have been in my life, and I've got so many great memories. I've had friends, like I said, since I was born. I've had friends since I was 10 years old, so almost 25 years. And yet I've felt so very lonely for so many years. And it's something that once it becomes a part of your day-to-day routine, it becomes more and more part of just how you live and how you just naturally function. It becomes just, it's like it's like nostalgia, but it's like painful nostalgia, or certain images, certain, like I said, watching action movies and such will trigger my pain, will trigger my loneliness. And like I said, it's something where the first few years after my brother was killed, I'd get consumed by my pain, but then, it would take a while, but, usually my pain would last, a few hours, and then it would, I'd break down in tears, and then I'd feel free of it. And as the time went on, my pain would consume me for longer and longer. And I've had states of depression where I've gone through weeks where every single day I wake up and I feel like I'm in a combat zone. I feel like I'm on pins and needles. And again, so like I said, so I'm dealing with the same pain I was dealing with almost 15 years ago. But I'm in much more of a tired, deteriorated sense. And it's just, I don't want people to wait as long as I did, because there's so many days where I just want it to be over. And it's sad because I have so many reasons to live for, so many blessings in my life, and so many things I look forward to with my children, my wife, and my family and friends. But even today, right before I was getting ready to film this video, I found out a close friend lost his son. And yes, it breaks my heart, because I know he's got a long, painful road ahead of him. It was a little more than a year ago. A really, really good friend of my wife's lost her son. And I just know that she's got a long road ahead of her. I don't want her or her husband or their children, their daughters, to go through what my family has gone through. But I just know that the longer you put it off, the harder it gets. And in some manners, that in some ways, words of encouragement I would say is that the pain doesn't get any less painful. But if you work at it, if you look for answers, if you find truths about your family and your pain, you get stronger. That's one thing that is more, in many ways, that my pain has become more difficult over the years of neglecting it. But at the same hand, I've also been, I've been able to deal with a lot more intense things happening in my life. As I got older, after my twin was killed, my life got far more complicated and more painful events took place. And And while that was just, another highlight of me missing my twin, it also was something that, looking back when I was younger, I think that when I was, immature and had that raw sense of pain where I drank a lot after my twin was killed, I would have been in a much more fragile state. And even though my pain wasn't as, I would say, encumbersome, it wasn't as defeating, it wasn't as consuming as it has gotten in recent years, just because I hadn't let it seep into my body and my soul as much. I wasn't as strong as person, the few following years after my twin was killed. And so I think that these other painful events would have pushed me over, and I wouldn't be here today. So I see the sad sense of things, if that makes any sense. But that was one of the things too that I've realized is it's important to reflect and look at certain elements that trigger your pain, elements that remind you of your loved one. And again, it needs to be on your terms, because that's just something where I've, the things I've discovered about my twin, the things that I've discovered about the pain of losing my twin, there are answers that I only knew. And so having somebody try to tell you what you're going to go through, having somebody tell you what you need to do is not the way. It needs to be something where, again, like in my situation, I'm trying to talk about my pain and talk about how it affects me and lessons I've learned and mistakes I've made, just to see if that triggers some type of awakening where somebody realizes, I do the same thing, or I do something similar, or maybe it's not even the similar, it's just the self-reflection that triggers somebody to self-reflect and think about, what's eating at them and why it is. That was one of the things that, I can't remember everything I've talked about with the pain of my twin. But one of the really painful things that was a blessing and but also very difficult was my twin was my best friend. But me being a very self-critical person and especially too before my twin was killed, I was not very confident at all in myself. I always knew he was my best friend, but I didn't know that I was his best friend. And he actually wrote that in his journal when he was in Iraq. And so it felt so good to have that answer to that tough question. But at the same hand too, I also felt like I missed out because I didn't know that he thought. I knew that we had an amazing connection. He and I communicated to each other like nobody else. That was one of the things I said at his eulogy. Was that I think I said something like I'm some of the lines of that I knew Nick the best, and I said something about how I'm sorry, but it's true. I say, but that was the thing, was that even though I knew Nick the best, I didn't know that about him. And, it was difficult finding out that he thought so highly of me. And I didn't know that until he had been killed. And again, was something I wanted to read was, I'd written a paper, it was a few months before he was killed, and I entitled it Nick. I said, Nick, the word Nick is a pretty simple word to most people. The word Nick is almost the heaviest word in my vocabulary. It has the power to move mountains in my life. It hasn't always been this way. There were some times in my life when the word Nick would simply mean a bunch of people I knew. There was a time when Nick met the brother I didn't really get along with. It says, and I quoted, again, I was young, I was 19. It says, all that matters is the ending, and this one is perfect. It doesn't matter how you get there, it's the fact that you get there that counts. Or the word Nick means so much more than a brother to me, and that's all that counts. The word Nick has taken some twists and turns, and the first definition I would give was a best friend. From around the time I was 8, my twin brother Nick would always boast to kids we met about how strong I was. We were inseparable. We'd always do everything together, even dress the same until the age 11, which again, I think I'm just guessing because I couldn't really remember. The next definition of the word Nick was the twin that went his separate way. At the age 14, my brother Nick felt like we couldn't be best friends. or couldn't be my friend. He didn't feel he would share his friends with me. I never really knew why. Well, since then, I was again 19 when I wrote this, but self-reflecting about around the time that happened, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were not just liking girls, but it was actually that the pursuit of happiness. But yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with just the fact that around that age, you get more interested with your interests. And so there's a certain level of trying to figure out what that takes and being committed to the mission. But I'll get back into it. Let's see. The word Nick now means the closest I ever remember being a twin, a U.S. Marine, a best friend once again. As Nick spends the next 5 months in Iraq, all I can do is hope and pray. After being in the Marines myself, that was just one more experience that my brother and I shared together. For the first time that I can remember, last week my brother told me, "I love you." I don't think we could get any closer than we are now. For now, that word is so special that is so special to me will get stronger and deeper in my heart. I only hope that the deeper it gets, it won't backfire and hurt me the most. I suppose that is the price you pay for having a friend so great. The word Nick has a great power in my life. If mentioned, this word could put a smile on my face or bring a tear to my eye. There's several. This is my, I ask you to please use it carefully, for it could have a great impact on me. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have sped my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. That last part was my favorite poem. I think the poet is Yeats. So, again, it's important to look at the elements of what are hurting, not just the loss of this loved one, but the personal details about it. It's not just, again, I feel like, and this is one of the reasons why I've looked at addressing mental health and talking about it and trying to speak from an understanding and knowledgeable area, is that I feel like mental health and depression and traumatic pain are viewed and talked about many times by people who study it, not people who experience it. And that's not always the case. But I just have that feeling, because when you read textbooks, when you look at how it's approached, there's so many times where I see these commercials, these bringing awareness to mental health and depression, and they're throwing a bunch of pills at people. And as I've discussed in the past, I think antidepressants and anxiety pills have their place. I do think that it's important to get that support so that you can get your feet underneath you. But I feel like so many times that how those approaches are like say expressed or sold is almost a permanent. There's even points where they'll talk about if one of your antidepressants or anxiety pills isn't enough, take another. This will help and so it's, again, I understand how heavy depression is, but that's just kind of how I put it is if you essentially live life with a crutch every day, and that's kind of how you approach life, is you're going to always have this crutch, well, then you're going to always have that crutch. And that's one thing. I was on antidepressants and anxiety pills for, it was like a year, maybe a little less. I can't really remember. But that was one thing that eventually came up. Was I remember there's a point where I had been, seeing a therapist. I'd been talking about it. I'd been getting more and more comfortable dealing and counteracting my pain and the triggers and just knowing when it was consuming me and how to calm the nerves and do everything naturally, to where I went off them, even though they did, how I put it, took the bite off of my pain, because I knew eventually I'd have to. I knew the longer I waited, again, as I started this video about, is the longer I waited, I knew the harder it would be, because I knew life was going to get heavier. I knew that once I was off those pills, that all the pain I was dealing with would weigh that much heavier, and I just knew that I had to do it sooner rather than later. So I don't think there's anything wrong with getting prescriptions to help you get your feet underneath you, but like I said, I feel like that's how they need to be treated, is getting to a point where it's like crutches. You only have them for a few weeks. And I'm not saying antidepressants for a few weeks, but my point is that there's amount of time where they're effective, but if you constantly stay in your crutches and you constantly don't rehabilitate yourself, that's one of the things that I review or refer to with mental health. Is it's just like it's very much like a physical wound, in that you need mental rehabilitation. You need to have processes where you're putting weight on your pain, you're putting pressure on it, you're challenging it so that you can get stronger, get more used to it. It's something where I don't think that, something you need to be lamed up. You're sitting in the metaphorical wheelchair and then you're walking and running. Like I said, it's a process. But that's something that I feel like, after a little while, that you really got to do is just slowly start moving forward. You don't run. It just slowly put a little bit of weight on that wound and just see what you can take, and then take a step back. But the point is I would say, just don't wait like I did. I just going through, I've had so many letters and so many different messages from my brother that I've had sitting around that I haven't read in years. I mean, and some of them I don't think I've read at all, because I think mentally, again, just self-reflecting, almost 15 years I've been waiting for my twin to come home. And after 15 years, I can admit he's never coming home. Not here. I one day see him again, but it's important to, again, self-reflect. Be honest with yourself. And again, this is something that I wouldn't be able to tell anybody in person, because, again, I realize how absurd that sounds to somebody, especially somebody who hasn't lost a loved one, hasn't gone through traumatic pain. Yeah, because it's been 15 years. You'd think. I mean, I went to his. He had two funerals. I went to both of them. And like I said, that moment sitting on the park bench, I knew he wasn't here. But yeah, I think a lot of times, people who lose loved ones, and again, I'm just speaking from my own perspective. I don't know how this would apply in other situations, but I think specifically in a traumatic loss, you're always just holding your breath, hoping that it was just some horrible accident, that somehow, it was that Jason Bourne moment where he just has amnesia, and he's just been, living somewhere, wondering where he's from, and one day he's going to knock at my door, and yeah, that's never going to happen. And so that's one of the things that I've been, trying to, again, coming up with the 15th anniversary of his death and our birthday. The day before, I've always wanted to do something grand, wanted to do something monumental, something, I don't know, just, I felt like our birthday in the 3rd has really come up short for most of the years than not, following his death. But I'm always just kind of like, I don't know what to do. I'm 700 miles away from, say, most of my friends and my family. But that's one thing I realized, was that one of the things that's made it so challenging was that absence of a lot of my family and friends, a lot of the traditions I grew up with. That's one of the things that I think has made this especially difficult, was that my twin was killed when I was 700 miles away from a lot of the people that I could have opened up to, because that's something that I find it highly difficult to talk about any real pain over the phone. I find it hard. I mean, it's hard enough opening up, but when you're on the phone, again, there's just, you can have bad connections. There be a point where the person can't hear you, and so it's just a sense of I don't want to have my emotions silence me, and so I just avoid it, and then inadvertently it silences me. So again, that's one of the things approaching this weekend that I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to break this cycle of sticking my head in the sand and just seeing the 2nd and 3rd of August come and go, and just me feel emotionally defeated, and then wait till next year. And so that's why I'm doing this right now, and reading some words I've written about him and words he's written. It's just, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be this, I'm sure that next year I'll probably making me make a different approach, or I'll certainly tweak it, and I'll be maybe a little more. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but it's something. It's different than I've done in 15 years, and I needed to try different because everything up until this point has felt lacking. There have been some years where I've been able to do stuff with family and or friends that felt right, that felt memorable. But specifically with the 2nd and 3rd of August, our birthday, and then his death, these days are I want to say two most important, but two most impactful days of my year, and they come back to back, and so it's something where I need to make a change. I need to try something new, even if it doesn't work out, even if I'm this bumbling fool. I've probably cried more on this camera than I've cried in front of everyone I know in the last 15 years. Again, I had that, and I don't want to anymore. I want to make a place for my pain, so it doesn't consume me throughout every single day. So it doesn't take control of my actions and my emotions and how I see life. So I just wanted to, I'm going to wrap it up in a second, but there's it's the first installment of my twins' journal when he was in Iraq. And again, it was just something I was going through just earlier today. He says it's Saturday, April 16th, 2005, 1400 hours, so 2 in the afternoon. This is the first I have had this journal. We have been here in Iraq for almost 2 months. So far, we have been in a few firefights, have been mortared a lot. My good friend Kitchen was killed by an IED a few weeks ago. We have cleared every house in our AO, and that sucked. The people are really scared of us, and I can see why. We roll in every town and city with tanks and big guns, and mean faces. I have come to respect some of these people, though, but they still don't understand why we're here. Right now, we're the only Marines in Iraq seeing any action. This is the hottest AO. Well, I'm going to bed now. Till tomorrow, Nick. And there's a bunch of other stuff he's written that's powerful, but the reason I was reading that was just, to kind of, like I said, that's one of the things that's very difficult. Amidst the many other difficult things with this pain is constantly seeing people who don't understand it, who think it's gone, who think the war's over. It's one of those things where all of us who live through it, who have a personal connection to it, it is very much alive and currently going on. It's one of those things where you see this effort in our society to bring attention to the pain and to mental health, and yet it seems like we're constantly stepping on each other's pain. It seems like we're constantly, and again, I think that the reason why people have a struggle seeing that and owning up to what they did was it wasn't intentional. I think that most pain that is neglected, that is overlooked, is unintentional. And a lot of times when people address that neglect or disrespect, they approach it in a very angry, emotional, painful manner, which, as I've talked about in past videos, is understandable. Like I said, if everything going on with the anthem was happening the first few years after my brother was killed, I'd be saying very different words today. I would be very angry, and I've been angry, and there are definitely days to this day that I will get angry and frustrated with the world in a country that I feel, and again, not all, but I feel like a lot of people in this country have forgotten. And I remember very vividly that I felt like the entire country was saying we will never forget, and yet 15 years later, I feel like a lot of the country has forgotten. You look at the NFL kneeling, you look at Major League Baseball with the kneeling, you look at the WNBA walking out and during the anthem, and again I'm not gonna again fling any mud into specific persons, but there's I think 2 WNBA players saying that they didn't want the anthem played for the rest of the season. And I was discussing this fact just yesterday with a friend about how I could see and have empathy, not agree obviously, but have empathy if their individual pain wasn't being addressed. But the fact that these WNBA players were wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts The fact that it was written on the court that they played on, the fact that they had a moment of silence and honor for Breonna Taylor, where they had her picture up and they all stood there honoring and remembering her, and the fact that they still feel compelled to disrespect my family and my pain, even though their pain is being addressed. I don't, it's hard not to feel anger. It's not hard not to want to fling metaphorical stones at people when people so callously and so, I don't say whimsically, but I mean, you would think that I wouldn't have to worry about my pain being disrespected and neglected, being that my brother gave his life for this country. And again, too, in those words I just read, I mean, as I said, you can debate and talk all you want about why the generals and politicians sent him. I don't have an issue with that. I understand that there's agendas and that what they say and what they do are not many times the same thing. But as I was writing, or as my twin brother wrote, and so many other Marines that were with him in the airmen and sailors and soldiers and National Guard, why they choose to protect us and why they choose to go into foreign countries. My brother wanted to help. And for him to give his life, again, the ultimate sacrifice, and then his pain and his sacrifice and my pain and my family's pain to be overlooked and ignored, it's very difficult to not let my anger and my frustration with this country's privileged, because I feel like it is a privilege to be an American. There are so many people, again, who feel that privilege, so many immigrants who are coming here because where they're leaving is so much worse than here. And a bad day here is better than, or most bad days here are better than good days in a lot of other countries. And to feel like that's not enough, and to look at the flag that my brother, honored and loved, because it was a resemblance of the selflessness that this country has strived for, not always done, but strived for. And to just see oppression, to just see hate and pain, and it just really, I made that movie. My brother died for you. It's again, because that's what it was. It wasn't a matter of him simply dying of a tragedy, dying of an accident. It was the fact that he willfully, during a time of war, joined the Marine Corps, knowing very well that he had a very high chance of not coming home. And to do that, again, we were 19 when he was deployed. He had been 20. We had been 20 years old for one day when he was killed. He lived a very short life, and he did it willingly so that others could live free. And for people to constantly talk about how much they suffer and how horrible this country is, it's very much like there's a knife in my back and somebody keeps twisting it. But it's important to, again, like I said, to speak out, and I would compel people that when they do speak out to do so tactfully, because, like I said, I could lash out and I'd be entitled to, but I know that would fall on deaf ears. And like I said, I want people to know about my pain and know about my family's pain, and veterans' pains, and other Gold Star family members and Blue Star family members, because we're a very small demographic of this country, and our pain has been forgotten. And I want us to get back to where we can all help each other. But I'm gonna finish here. But as always, good luck and good night.